Changing gears to another a former Big 12 team, that's Texas. And they just beat, the Red River rivalry. They come out, they do their thing against Oklahoma. A lot of recruits in attendance, some guys that were paying attention that may have been on visits at other schools. Were you surprised at that outcome at all?
I was a little bit. I think anytime you have Red River, anytime you have a rivalry college football game, Dukes, you kind of factor in a little bit of margin for the unexpected to happen, the random to happen. I'm not so surprised that Texas pulled away the way they did. I think I was a little bit surprised at the overall dominance from them on the offensive side of the football because Oklahoma offensively, they have their own problems. You got a true freshman quarterback. You're dinged up everywhere when it comes to skill players. Your offensive line has issues. Like, that didn't surprise me, but I think the hope in that game, if you're Oklahoma, is like, hey, we got a defense loaded with NFL studs. And so the chess match early on was interesting, but for Sark just to sit back and say, you know what, we're just going to run the football behind this offensive line that's massively experienced. We got a quarterback that could be in the Heisman Trophy race. We don't even need him to throw for 200 yards. Like, just we're going to pound the rock and live that way. That, to me, said a lot about how far Texas has come and how far Steve Sarkisian's taken this overall roster to be able to just play that style of ball and to make Oklahoma submit for, quite honestly, the better part of those 3 quarters.
When you look at the skill positions Texas has, when you look at the wide receiver room, they aren't sparing any expense or recruiting. When I say expense, I mean they are they are literally hammering the recruiting trail at the wide receiver position. Yep. What about that offense? Even when they run the ball, what about that offense makes them attractive to receivers?
I think it's kind of funny. I think about Texas right now. The comp is kind of like what Ohio State was a couple of years ago. Like, you're attracting those receivers, obviously, because of Brian Hartline and the development factor that Ohio State has always had, but also Ohio State always had a quarterback. And with Steve Sarkisian being the quarterback whisperer, like that, they are always, it seems like at least, going to have a quarterback, whether it be Arch Manning behind Quinn Ewers, whether it be in 2026 where they have Diabell committed. Maybe he's 2027. Dukes, correct me if I'm wrong.
26. Yep.
2026. Okay, we're on the money there. Like,
and KJ Lacey 25.
That's right. Okay, I got my classes all fiddled around there. We're still a ways off from signing day. The bottom line here, Sark's going to have his guy to pull the trigger. And so if I'm a receiver, that is at the top of my wish list when I'm talking about what I need to commit to a school. Like, it's great if you got the NIL package. That's great if you got a fun offense to play in. But if I don't have a cat that can get me the football, I'm not coming. And if I'm a receiver, I see Texas in the depth chart, I see the committed list. I'm like, okay, we can work with this. And I think that helps them in a massive way.
We talk about the running backs and the all-time greats at Texas when you think of all the way back to Ricky Williams. And now you've got your running backs for this class. They're still going after more. When you see the way that these freshmen have had to step up this year, what are you selling when you talk to the next set of great running backs when you know you've got Sark's the quarterback guy, you got Khalil Lockett, you got Jamie French, you got all the receivers. What do you say to get your next great running back if you're Texas?
I think I make sure I hammer this home like, hey, yes, you see the quarterbacks. Yes, you see the receivers that go get picked to the NFL draft, but like, make no mistake. If I'm Steve Sarkisian, I get that running back in a room with, Tashard Choice. We sit down and say, we want to run the football. Like, look what we're doing here on tape. Look at CJ Baxter and the success he had last year as a freshman. Look at Trey Wisner, and the success he's having right now, stepping up in, more or less a role that he didn't expect to have early on in the year. This is a situation now, I think, where if you're considering Texas as a running back, there's the history to go with it, but there's also the attitude from a head coaching standpoint of like, if they don't stop the run, we're not going to stop running it. And so I think that's attractive because in today's day and age of the spread offense and the air it out kind of almost highlight culture, if you know what I mean, like all we see on SportsCenter is the deep bombs and the quarterbacks getting the Heisman Trophy love and all that. Like, there are teams like Texas and I think Tennessee as well that still want to run the football. So I think that'd be attractive, and I think that'd be encouraging if I'm looking at Texas as a running back recruit.
Texas has a big one this weekend. They're playing who a lot of people think has been the standard in college football for the past 4 to 5 years in the University of Georgia. How do you see this game playing out?
That's a great question. So we broke it down on today's show, and I went back and forth all day yesterday because on one hand, you look at everything on paper and you're like, okay, like Texas this year, at least from what we've seen, should have the matchups on the perimeter, should at least be able to hold serve in the interior. They've got a quarterback that, when he's healthy, has been the epitome of dialed in. And then we also have that data point of what Alabama did to Georgia through the air and what Mississippi State did to Georgia through the air. And so I wouldn't be wildly surprised if it was a situation where everything we expect to happen on paper just goes the opposite direction, because it just feels like it's been that year in college football. And also, I have a difficult time believing that Kirby Smart is going to go 0-2 in the big spots against Bama and Texas. But honestly, Duke's like, I'm just going to roll with what I believe to be true right now. And I believe Texas is the most complete, most dangerous team in all the country right now, right up there with Oregon. And I'm going to go with Texas at home to get it done. And Georgia is still very much so in the college football playoff hunt. If you have a loss to Bama and Texas, that's, the epitome of some quality losses, unfortunately. But no, I think Texas is the more talented team right now. And it would take something from Georgia defensively that we haven't seen just yet to get it done on the road.